I think I expected them both to come back for one more
Yeah,
year,
I
just
did too.
because management had publicly said that that was the plan as of a couple weeks ago, and so this terrible end to the season seems like it torpedoed him a little bit, which I get it. You know, like a month and a half ago, the Giants were supposed like had like a very high percentage of making the playoffs, and then they just gave it away. They were in the proverbial driver's seat,
Yeah.
and they just lost it. So my thought was he's coming back. Zaidi's coming back, and it's sort of like the show me year. They both had. I think Zaidi has an option in his contract, so I don't
Yeah.
know what Kapler's was, but it was like, here's the show me year, and if you guys can sort of bring it back, then there's the faith. But when it was Kapler and not Zaidi, who or not both, who kind of took the brunt of the responsibility of it, I was surprised because you could sense that Zaidi was almost like, man, like that's my partner in crime here.
Mhm.
And for me to still be here and for him to not be here, it's kind of like him taking the fall in a sense. Like he was very sort of apologetic, and you can tell they're really close and they're really good friends. And then the thing that I thought was very interesting is that Zaidi said that he himself is going to have to be a little bit more flexible in feedback and in opinions and in maybe process changes, sort of operationally, like you're saying. So that was interesting to hear him say that. And at the same time, I kind of wonder, like, if what works best with Zaidi, his hand-picked guy, did not work. So essentially, what the Giants are saying is maybe your way isn't necessarily the only way, and maybe there has to be this blend of feedback and opinions on stuff. Because who is out there? I think the manager selection is going to be interesting because if the talk of this town is if Bob Melvin gets let go in San Diego, he would be a great fit. He's a former Giant, but he also he works well with analytics, but he's also very opinionated
Yes.
in things. So if they moved to a Melvin scenario, is that the better way to work with someone like Zaidi, where it's you're just not lockstep, like him and Kapler were like lockstep in the same ideas and the same philosophies. And so if it went to badly like this year, who's going to have a suggestion that says, okay, maybe we can't do it this way, when both the manager and the baseball ops guy just agree. So that's going to be interesting in who they bring in. And I don't know. I like that. Like who they bring in is going to tell me what they believe is the right way of doing things. And Zaidi he was heavily sought after here. Like they brought him in and they were like, this is the guy that's going to turn the franchise around. And the Giants are, like you said, the Giants are going to be the Dodgers, North. And it hasn't happened. And but we have to give him the benefit of the doubt as well as all these other general managers. And with all the things that happened during the pandemic, some of them have worked out far worse for some teams than others. But yeah, like what is your take on that whole thing? Because what you guys do is, heavily analytics based and scouting based and just tying all of these things together. What the Giants did say to you about what they think about who they have in charge?
So it's weird. You usually don't see outside of like super successful 20-year tenures. He's going to be hiring his third manager. He inherited Bochy, and then
Yep.
he hired Kapler, and now he's also getting to hire Kapler's replacement. So if you're letting him pick another manager, you're not actually, because you can fire the president of baseball operations and stick the new one with a manager he didn't pick.
Yeah.
But most guys coming in from the outside are going to want to pick their own manager. You just saw this with the Mets, where David Stearns blew out Buck Showalter, so he could pick his own manager. So you're almost committing to like the current situation for 2 years, because most managers get 2 years at least, even if things don't go well, unless they're like just monumentally terrible or something happens where they have to fire them. So it's almost like you're committing to stay the course for a couple of years here, which again, I don't think is the wrong move. The Giants have shown in a lot of ways improvement as an organization over the I think Farhan's been here 5 years, give or take, which is, it doesn't feel that long, but time both feels longer and shorter now.
Yeah.
But it's been a while, and they've shown lots of improvements in their player development and some in their scouting, kind of modernization towards becoming a modern franchise. And that process does take about 5 years to actually like fully get into place. Like, it takes a couple of years to hire all the people you want, and then it takes a couple more years to get them doing the things you want and kind of get everybody on the same page. The weird part about letting Kapler go within this is that Kapler was kind of the, I don't want to say ideal because that's overstating it, but a very common model now is for teams to hire a manager that's in lockstep with the front office. That's the vast majority of managers. If you start looking around the league, there's maybe a half dozen managers that don't fit in that mold. Dusty Baker, Bruce Bochy, Phil Nevin with the Angels, although he just got let go the other day. Maybe a couple of other ones. Most of like the big name, I'm going to do everything myself, I'm not the collaborative front office guys, don't have jobs anymore. Like, Joe Girardi doesn't have a job. Don Mattingly doesn't have a job. Like, Joe Madden doesn't have a job, and they're like not getting interviews anymore either. So Kapler's almost, and Kapler has a player development background, and Kapler has well-versedness in analytics and modern training techniques. Maybe too much. Maybe that was maybe that caused communication problems with some players. That's been something that's kind of been out.
Especially
going back to Philly for him.
Well, and here's the thing, right? The Giants' model for this year was to sign guys to 1-year opt-out deals. So it's not like, there was a conversation about, Logan Webb has been very vocal about, this locker room. When I came to this locker room, and so you got Buster there. And so you sort of looked to Buster for approval before you did something. But when you have a team full of guys who are on 1-year deals, what kind of clubhouse is that? They don't know if they're going to be around. They're not like Logan Webb, who's like, I'm here for the next, 5 years or whatever, and I'm going to be here, and I'm the guy. And you look at someone like Michael Conforto, and you're like, hey, Mike, you may be gone, and you were injured for half of the year. So what does that mean for a clubhouse? I think that also is something that needs to be analyzed for what the Giants do. I'm not saying sign everybody to 3-year deals. I'm just saying the way that they try and fill in these blanks, and maybe they did that this year and last year is because they're just waiting for these prospects to kind of come in. But it just seemed like, you have guys who are there for the long run, like Logan Webb, and very few others, and everybody else is just like, this might just be my cup of coffee here before I go somewhere else.
Yeah, and it becomes difficult to. So much of what a manager's actual job is just like hidden to us, right? Like, we don't see the day-to-day interactions with the players. We don't see, a lot of the current managerial job is communicating the team's plan to the players. Like, we're going to, and getting them the right information to succeed, because there are players that are like incredibly well analytics versed and just want to hear like absolutely every analytic and want to know the hitters that want to know the starting pitchers VAA and pitchers that are incredibly into. But there's also an awful lot of guys who want somebody to take that for them and just give them actionable steps. They don't want to hear about, they don't want to hear about the pitcher's VAA. They just want to know what it means to them.
Right.
And how they can play better. And, the Giants were kind of a weird team in terms of like, it was like very stratified mix of like established veterans and then like extremely unestablished players. You don't really have like that, like, you know, like the younger stars. But then you also do have Logan Webb around, who's kind of, Logan Webb had a viable Cy Young case this season and had a decent one last year too. Like he's, I would say Logan Webb's an ace at this point, which I don't know if that's like a controversial statement, but for like his last 4 innings, he's been like freaking great, and
he's
so much. Yeah,
he's a sinker ball guy.
Yeah,
and they had terrible defense, and he still pitched through that, which tells me, improve the defense a little bit, and you may have a guy who could win a Cy Young.